Greetings and welcome to Fright Night Flix, where every night is Fright Night. While 2025 has been a surprising strong year for horror overall, it definitely wasn't without its fair share of stinkers. So today, I'm counting down my top 10 least favourite horror films of the year. Just to be clear, this isn't an objective list of the worst horror films ever made. This is purely my personal opinion. So if one of your favourites ends up on this list, please don't take it personally. Also, Fear Street Prom Queen won't be appearing in this list because I actually enjoyed that movie. These are just simply 10 horror films from 2025 that I didn't enjoy at all. So with that said and done, here are my picks for the worst horror films of 2025.
Right, off we go then.
Kicking off this list is Megan 2.0, the long-awaited sequel to the 2023 hit Megan. And to put it bluntly, this plays like a Diet Coke Temu branded knockoff of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, except it completely forgets the heart, the soul, and the reason that film still holds up as a masterpiece. Sure, it looks slick enough on the surface, but that's where my compliments end. The plot is flimsy, the characters are paper thin, and the performances never rise above serviceable. Worst of all, the film abandons almost everything that made the original film work as a horror movie, swapping tension and dread for bland, weightless action. And even as an action film, it still fails because it has absolutely nothing new or interesting to say.
Yes, but at least they never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
A sequel wasn't a bad idea on paper. The AI regulation angle is timely and could have been genuinely smart, but this execution completely missed the mark. Instead of sharpening the satire or the horror, the film leans into a cringe-worthy cheesiness, turning Megan into a mascot rather than a menace. For me, this one was a huge misfire. In ninth place, we have Ma, the spin-off to Shaitan and the second Indian horror film we've covered on the channel. Unlike its predecessor, which had an intriguing concept and genuine promise, Ma does the exact opposite and fails to do anything interesting with the ideas it brings to the table.
Weird.
I described Ma as watchable but deeply disappointing. The visuals are strong and the score is effective, but the weak storyline and flat uninspired performances hold it back. It feels more concerned with atmosphere than substance, and without a compelling narrative, the atmosphere quickly wears thin. That said, I appreciate Ma as part of India's growing presence in the horror genre. There's a clear potential here, and I know there are far many stronger Indian horror films out there that really showcase what the industry can do when it fully commits to the genre. It looks stylish and sounds great, but as a horror film, it leaves very little lasting impact. And honestly, this is where I need my Indian viewers to start recommending me some genuinely great Indian horror films, because I know they exist.
Just tell us. Tell me.
In eighth place, we have Him, the Jordan Peele-produced sports horror film that promises something truly unique. On paper, it has all the ingredients of a strong horror film, clearly operate in the lanes of a Jordan Peele style and thematic interest. However, with Peele only serving as producer, it's hard not to feel that concept never reaches its full potential. I really wanted to love this film because the idea genuinely grabbed me. Exploring the horror behind athletes' perfection is a smart and timely hook.
Nice.
Unfortunately, the film never digs deep enough to make that idea land. We're what's left, which feels like a diet soda version of a Jordan Peele film. Recognisable in favour, but lacking the richness and bite that makes his work stand out. No disrespect to Justin Tipping, he's a talented filmmaker, and there is clear promise here, but this feels like a concept that desperately needed Peele's voice in the writing, or even his direction. Had he been more hands-on creatively, I think we'd be talking about this film a lot more than other films on this list, and it wouldn't end up on this list either. As it stands, Him is a perfectly fine effort. It boosts strong visuals, an excellent score and solid performances, but the weak writing and shallow character work prevent it from becoming something truly special. A good idea, competently made, but ultimately undercooked. In seventh place, we have Opus, the debut film from Mark Anthony Green, a film I generally thought had a lot of promise going in. The cinematography is gorgeous, and John Malkovich completely steals the show.
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
What Opus ultimately falters, though, is in its writing. The premise is intriguing, and there are some compelling ideas at play, but the film never quite develops the deeper thematic weight needed to make those ideas truly resonate. Recent films like Get Out, Midsommar, Glass Onion and Blink Twice work so well because of their layered storytelling and rich symbolism. Opus, by comparison, feels like it's missing the extra layer, something to elevate it beyond just an engaging mystery and into something more substantial. That said, Opus is visually impressive with stand-up performances from John Malkovich and Ayo Ediri. It's not a bad film by any means, and clearly talent on display here, but with a stronger screenplay and more clearer defined themes, this could have been something genuinely special rather than just merely good. Just missing the bottom 5 on this list is Lee Wannam's latest feature, Wolfman, which hit cinemas earlier this year, and honestly it's one I've almost completely forgotten about. On the plus side, it's better than your average January horror release. The visuals are solid, the makeup and transformation effects are impressive, the performances are generally strong, and there are a few effective jump scares sprinkled throughout. Wannam clearly knows how to craft tension and has an eye for pacing.
Magnificent! Magnificent! Magnificent!
But the film ultimately doesn't live up to the potential of a Lee Wannam project. The story feels limited in scope, the screenplay is underdeveloped, and the characters don't have any depth to make us care about their fates. The horror elements are there, but they're overshadowed by a formulaic narrative that never quite surprises. That said, it's still a massive step up from the 2010 Wolfman with Benicio del Toro, which was flat and forgettable. This version had moments of fun and style, but ultimately it feels like a missed opportunity to do something truly memorable with the werewolf miss-off, something they haven't done well since American Werewolf in London. Kicking off the bottom half of this list is Scott Derrickson's first film of 2025, The Gorge, a prime example of how straight-to-streaming releases can waste incredible talent on uninspired projects.
Not a great plan.
While I can appreciate the score and Anya Taylor-Joy's performance, the film as a whole is a mess. The concept had potential, but the execution is flat, leaving it feel more like a product than a passion project. A tighter screenplay, more inventive visuals, and a stronger co-lead alongside Taylor-Joy could have elevated this into something memorable. Instead, it comes across as just another corporate streaming cash grab, adding to the slow decline of theatrical cinema. Taylor-Joy and the rest of the cast deserve far much better than this. The Gorge had all the ingredients for a standout horror film, but instead it's forgettable, uninspired, and painfully generic. In fourth place, we have Borderline, a film I found incredibly frustrating. The execution is poor, and it feels like another example of how straight streaming releases can waste incredible talent on uninspired projects. However, my friend Justin Doyle really enjoyed this one, so I'm going to hand it over to him to break it down. Take it away, Justin.
Hey all you fans of Fright Night Flix, this is JD Review Master saying hello to Robbie and all of his fans. He wanted me to talk about Borderline and why I liked it, especially because it's in his list of unliked horror movies of 2025, but it is one of my favorite movies of 2025, and it's definitely because of Samara Weaving and Ray Nicholson. There's movies that are written driven or director driven or production design driven. This one is all actor driven. I think they both give off great performances and really make us believe the insanity that is going on in both of their brains. This is definitely more of like a thriller comedy, a darker comedy than it is like a horror film, but I can definitely see why he would put this in that category. But it's just so much fun. I think the ridiculousness of it really just set it apart from other elements from other movies, but also kept it so serious, and believable, which is why I thought it was really fun. The writing is a little bit silly, but I think again, the actor's vision on this was really driven. And Ray Nicholson is just a delight. We haven't seen him a lot in movies, but I think he really has been coming around and becoming his own and separating himself from his dad, which is important, even though he looks a lot like him. But Samara Weaving is definitely one of the screen queens of the new generation, and just a beauty to have on screen. And I really like her from Ready or Not, and I think we're getting a sequel soon. And I think this maybe should have a sequel soon. But yeah, you definitely have to check it out. Borderline, it's worth the view.
Thanks, Justin. Before we get into my bottom 3 worst horror films of 2025, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to Fright Night Flix, and follow us on social media so you don't miss a single scare. What are your least favourite horror films of 2025? You let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget to check out all my past reviews on the channel, including all...
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
My bronze pick on this list is The Woman in the Yard, a film I debated seeing in cinema, but ultimately skipped, and honestly that turned out to be a wise choice because this film is goddamn awful. Danielle Deadwyler delivers a phenomenal performance, proving why, again, she's one of my favourite actresses working today. The problem is she's left to carry the film almost entirely on her own, and the rest of the cast never rise to her level. The plot is another one-location thriller that tries to match its simplicity with vague symbolism and mystery, but it ultimately lacks depth, tension, and real scares. Joe Colette Sarah seems to have aimed for a serious character-driven horror, but the execution falls flat. Even with polished visuals, the film feels hollow, mostly disengaged, and more like a quick cash grab rather than a passion project. Deadwyler deserves better, and The Woman in the Yard ends up being frustrating, forgettable, and easily one of the weakest horror films of 2025.
That was impressively cunty.
Coming in at my number 2 is The Ritual, which brought together horror MVP Dan Stevens and acting legend Al Pacino, a collaboration that should have been a dream. Sadly, it's one of the biggest disappointments I've seen all year.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Stevens and Pacino do what they can, but the film gives them nothing to work with. The writing is lifeless and overly familiar, recycling the demon priest and cursed church tropes we've all seen countless times. There's no tension, there's no originality, and no reason to care about the characters. Pacing drags, dialogue feels forced, and so-called scares are predictable or laughable. Even the directing is flat, with uninspired cinematography and bland production design that makes the whole film feel cheap and hollow. Overall, The Ritual isn't just a weak horror film, it's one of the weakest films I've seen this year, full stop. Stevens and Pacino are wasted on uninspired writing and lazy direction, and nothing about the movie lingers once it lands. Honestly, I'd take Fear Street Prom Queen over this film any day. Before I reveal my number 1 spot, here are a few dishonourable mentions. Holland. Mimi Cave's follow-up to Fresh just completely fell flat for me. Whatever spot that film had, this one never found it. Clown in a Cornfield. A largely forgettable entry with a premise that feels silly than it is sary. The Conjuring Last Rites. This felt like two entirely different films stitched together, never fully committing to either. Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I really enjoyed the first film, but this sequel doubled down on the exact problem people had with the first film. The Long Walk. One I know people love, but for me, it was massively overrated and never lived up to the hype. And now with that out of the way, we move on to my worst horror film of the year, which is... Topping my list as the most disappointing horror film of 2025 is Keeper, the second film from Oz Perkins this year. On paper, it had potential. Perkins has proved his craft generally unsettling horror, but in execution, this film falls flat on every single level. Visually, Keeper shines. The cinematography is haunting, the lighting and framing are striking, and there are moments that suggest Perkins' usual touch for atmosphere. But unfortunately, that's where my positives end. The story is painfully generic, lacking suspense, originality, or any emotional weight. Characters feel hollow, performances are underutilized, and the film fails to create any connection with the audience. You're left admiring the visuals while feeling nothing for the story unfolding on screen. What especially frustrates me is how quickly Perkins went from making memorable, tense horror films like The Monkey and Longlegs to delivering something so uninspired. Perhaps he needs a break, or maybe he should stick to directing films he's written himself. He clearly struggles when forced to work as a director for hire. Keeper ends up being empty, forgettable, and ultimately the horror letdown of 2025, a film that had all the pieces for success, but somehow managed to disappoint at every turn. And that is why Keeper is, in my opinion, the worst horror film of 2025.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Thank you all for watching. Next time I'll be having a Christmas special reviewing Krampus for its 10th anniversary. But until then, stay spooky.